our business on is we have really fast shipping. And so they just push it on the person selling the product. So same thing. If you can kind of outsource that piece of it, you probably should do that. I have a friend and client, Nathan, in Asheville. He runs a slingshot company. It's extremely successful. He sells more slingshots than anybody in the world other than Walmart. And he's a really awesome guy. He has a Shopify site. And he has, the only stress in his life is shipping. You know how tough it is to ship 80 pounds of ball bearings? I mean, it's not that hard. It's just expensive, you know. And then if there's an issue with it, you have to ship it back, or if you miss the shipment. So if you don't have a brick and mortar place where FedEx is dropping by every day, it's a pain to deal with shipping, and you're going to spend way more time. That whole like shipping and handling is actually very time consuming if you have to deal with it. So try not to.
In an ideal world, how would you contact Damien to ship out the oil pans?
Like somebody like Damien, you mean?
Yeah.
How would you just get in touch with them?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the size of the business. One of the things that I'm looking at getting into is affiliate sites, where I set up a website similar to this that's designed both from a content standpoint and the graphic standpoint, designed in a certain way. So let's say it's going to be for snowboarding gear. I get a domain name, I set up a WordPress site, I generate some content, I pick a theme that all has to do with that. And then I go to Amazon, and you can have an account, and you can basically like build out a little favorites list and save that as your snowboard favorites list. And then they'll just let you take it and put it on your site. And so that's a way that you can not have to even know about or have the product. You can just say, just give me everything from your snowboard category. And you put it on your site, and if people purchase through that, you instantly make money, and you don't have to deal with the shipping at all. So another situation is, there's a guy that is a friend of mine. He lives down in Rio now, but he used to live in Atlanta, and he has a wholesale glass business, like glass countertops and windows and mirrors and stuff like that. And he, through a friend of the family, found this person that had this glass business and just contacted them and said, hey, how are sales? And they were like, well, it's not as good as it could be, you know. And he said, well, what would you guys say if I helped you guys do sales, and this is what I'm thinking, and I'm going to set up a site, and I'm going to pull in your products, and we'll start with just a few. And so there's no easy way. There's no like network of these folks. You just got to find them. You just got to call them up and try to do it in a way that might make them kind of smirk but not be mad. Like, hey, how's business doing this year? Not as good as it should be? Should I help? Can I help? You know, like, here's what I'm thinking. And if you can stay out of shipping, I encourage you to. So.
There are a lot of newer things that are coming out in terms of shipping that like do like website.
Drones?
No, like ship station and stuff like that. Yep. Where basically like you just get as much information as possible about the product and the customer, and they just like optimize it and try to save you money, and then they're like, this is the fastest option, cheapest option, whatever, and then you just.
And it basically, it probably just goes out and it looks at that person's zip code and then your zip code, and then it looks at the rates from all the different systems, and then the 1 day, 2 day, overnight.
Yeah, it's just software that you pay for, but it simplifies things.
There's there's a system called SKU Vault, SKU is stock keeping unit, SKU Vault, and they'll do like inventory control and also dump out to kind of the fulfillment side and help with a similar system, just figuring out the shipping cost. So you got your domain name, you got your site set up, you're not getting any traffic, not a big deal yet. You got to try to make sure that your funnel is in place so that even if you get just a few visitors to your site, you can understand how they found you, at what point in this funnel they bail. And this is not something that I learned from a class or anything. This is just us realizing that the process is clunky and it needs to be smoother. It's just realizing that, oh, there was 3 clicks, can we make it 1 click? Or why is everybody bailing from this particular step? Oh, it's because we were kicking them out to PayPal and kicking them back. Or we tried to open up a window, a pop-up window with PayPal, and they had pop-up blockers on. This is all very incremental trial and error to try to just, and this was tough to kind of boil it down to this, but basically it's a call to action, and in my case, it's a big giant blue button. It's the form to process the sale. A little bit about the form, and this is kind of important. The form plugin for WordPress is the only plugin that I pay for. And the reason why is because there are add-ons and a plugin in itself is an add-on. There are add-ons to the plugin that give it more functionality. So for instance, when somebody starts filling out the form, so they say, yep, I want to buy this, and this button links over to a buy now page. Here's a little form. I hate collecting this much information. If you can collect less information, you'll be better off. We have to know the year model. We have to, because we need to know which pan shell to send them. Some people put in 2013, and I was like, you don't even have this problem, man. Just change your oil pan. Like, we'll sell you one, but you don't need it. You know, it's not going to fit. So there's some of this information that we need to collect. One of the last pieces of this whole thing is kind of the follow through and connecting the dots and making sure that as people come into this funnel and this system, if they fail at any point, that you can try to get them back into it. And so how do you do that? Email really is the best way, or phone call if you can get that. But so again, the reason why I paid for this plugin for the form is it builds out really clean forms. There's an add-on for Stripe that makes it super simple, where you just say, yep, add that Stripe add-on, and then it says, what's your Stripe username and password? And you plug it in, and it instantly connects the dots. And it instantly says, okay, we've identified that you have this one product field in your form. Do you want to add anything into it? And so the system to dump this payment from the form over to Stripe is like this little add-on plugin. And to not have to build out this custom API thing is fantastic. To just use a little plugin that does that. We also use something called Zapier. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I think Zapier is an important thing to talk about at this point because it's just a really, really cool website. And Zapier is the ability to zap data from one place to another across the internet. I use it a bunch. This example is I take the first name, the last name, and the email address. Every time this form is filled out, and it zaps it to MailChimp into a list. Okay? MailChimp is like Constant Contact. It's just a mail management program. It's right here. Stacks up people who are on the list. So by people filling out this one form, it instantly takes their information and puts them onto a particular list that I can follow back up with those people, whether they purchased or not. Because some people fill this out and then they don't actually purchase, or they do and then they want a refund because they didn't read the details or whatever. It's not the right one. So, but to get that information, you can send out these reoccurring email blasts and say, hey, you still got oil spots in your driveway? We know you do because you didn't buy this kit. And so you can do these little subtle things where you're just staying on their mind. You're just kind of revisiting these people. And so we've sent out email blasts, and we've got like 15 sales in one day. And it was like we timed it just perfect where as we were kind of in the middle of fall, we sent out an email blast saying, the cold weather is coming. You are not going to want to do this in the cold weather. Now is the time. And we sold like a dozen kits that one day. So those little add-ons for this form plugin let you send to Stripe easily, and then Zapier lets you do the dump onto a MailChimp list. And Zapier can do a lot of other stuff, which if we had time I'd get more into that. But for this purpose, it's great. So this form is basic. It's just name, first name, last name, phone, email, model, address. You need it for shipping, and then their credit card information, and that's it. So back to the funnel piece of this. You gotta have a form to process the sales. Okay. Now, if you're just doing a little simple PayPal button, you really don't need that. You can just kick them there and then bring them back. Content collection. That's where I was talking about with the MailChimp, collecting there as much information as you can. You need to process the payment. That's the little Stripe add-on that I was talking about. Shipping and handling. Try not to deal with it. Customer service and reviews, and those are kind of coupled together and in that order for a reason. Be ready for refunds. It's going to happen. Be ready for somebody that is pissed off because you didn't send instructions with it, or somebody that, you know, it's whatever it is broken when it gets there. So just be ready for that, and by being ready for that, what I mean is have the ability to issue a refund without having to figure out like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? With Stripe, you just click a refund button and it kicks the money right back to them, and they don't charge you a fee for that. And then as far as the reviews go, proof is always going to sell more products than anything else. If you have a widget that solves, you know, back hair or whatever, you got to have proof. You got to be able to prove it. And testimonials these days are probably the best way to do that. Video testimonials are fantastic You got some back hair problems? I got a widget for you, man. And so the email list that stacks up in MailChimp, for the people that truly do purchase, we send them an email a month later that says, hey, thank you so much for your purchase. We would love to get some feedback from you. How did the process go? And we put a link in there that sends them to a form on the website that they can fill out their testimonial. They're not always great. Sometimes they're really bad. It's a great product, but sometimes people just don't clean all the oil and grease off the pan, and so they get frustrated by that. And so there's things that you're going to learn through the process. But to send them this email, and then to track those clicks and those opens to know who actually got it, and then you collect some percentage of testimonials or reviews from that, you then get to use that information on your site to replace Chuck Riggins' testimonial. And it validates that that it works, whatever it is. It's trying to work. This is the fun part. Let me see, make sure I didn't skip over anything. Sales funnel, call to action, collect bare bone information, as little as you can in that form. Zap whenever you can. Zapier is Zapier, and you guys should just check it out for just interest. You can zap between all kinds of stuff. Expect returns, be ready for them. Shipping, Amazon has ruined everybody, basically. We just now expect everything to drop from a droid under our doorsteps. FAQs and reviews. So you can use those questions and those testimonials to extract little FAQs that you don't have to answer constantly. You can say, do we ship to Canada? Yeah, here's what our policy is. And then analytics. So analytics in itself, I teach a 3-hour class on analytics about once a month in Nashville, and that is not even close to enough time. So the 10 minutes that I'm going to get to spend is like a fraction of the time needed. This is the area, this and I guess AdWords will probably what the next session will be on to dig a little bit deeper into this. So I'm going to kind of do a quick rundown of analytics. Google Analytics is free. They're collecting more information than we even know about. You might as well get the information yourself. It's really easy to sign up. You go to google.com/analytics. If you have a Gmail address, you already have an account. You just say, yes, I have a website. The sign up process is, what's your domain name? What time zone are you in? Pick your industry if you want, and then they generate a little snippet of code. And you take that code, and depending on the type of website that you have, you're either going to put that in. Normally when I'm telling people this, they've got a website from like 10 years ago. None of you guys have a old school HTML site from 10 years ago. Everybody's going to have some kind of content management system. And so with all of these current systems, it says, put your tracking code here. And you literally take the Google Analytic tracking code, which looks like this, right there, and you just paste it into that one spot on your site, whether it's in WordPress or Magento or BigCommerce or any of these, and there's going to be a spot that says put your tracking code here. That code will automatically start stacking up all the data for your site. You won't get any historical data from before the code was on there. It just starts the day that you put it on there. The areas that everybody really wants to know about or needs to know about, the first one is probably geo. This shows you where people are. That's where people are inside of the world, inside of the US. Like I said, all of these kits up north rust out faster than down here. So we're heavily concentrated right in that area. There's our states, and there's our cities. It's always going to look, what is that? It's always going to look at 30 days, yesterday and 30 days prior, okay? You can change that date range, so I could come up here and say, I want to see this back to 2013. And that data will change, okay? If I kind of jump back to the overview, now we have almost a full year of data, okay? And you can hover over and see different spikes. That was probably an email blast. These spikes, maybe a posting on a forum. This right here is where we change servers and everything tanked for a day. And we can get all this information. So it's great to see where people are. What do you do with it? I don't know, what do you do with it? Anybody? It depends on the product, it depends on the service, it depends on, you know, what you're actually trying to sell. For us, what we do with it is we know that people that are in colder climates where there's salt used on the roads have this issue more than people in Texas. We still sell kits all over the world, or really all over the country, but, and a couple in Canada, but we know for a fact that the region kind of around the Great Lakes, we sell a lot of these things. So we pay more on Google AdWords for the people searching for our keywords in those states, which I'll get into after this. But we can make some decisions based on the fact that we know where people are, and we can increase our budget for those states, those darker states, by 10%, because we know that those people are more likely to buy.
How did you define the exact keywords for your industry?
Analytics first, which we'll look at the keyword section in a second.
Yeah.
SEMrush is an awesome tool that's actually not in this presentation at all, but SEMrush is a service that does keyword and competitor research and analysis. There's a free version and then there's a paid version. Free version gives you like the top 10 of everything that you would look at, and then the paid version gets you everything. It's expensive, it's like $75 a month. But it gives you, it basically takes like a snapshot of Google search results every hour, and then creates this giant massive index that you can dig through and play with and organize and look at. And so one of the things that I'm getting ready to get into is what are the important keywords and what are not the important keywords. One other thing before we move on to that I should mention, it's also very important to know just from a usability standpoint, not necessarily the browsers that people are on, but sometimes, but mobile. How does your site look on mobile? I don't need to tell you guys at all that like mobile is a big percentage of traffic, right? So it's half always these days. So if I go down to the overview on mobile, I can see that 53% is on a desktop, 37%, looking right here, 37% is on a phone, and then about 10% is on a tablet. Okay. The important thing here is the bounce rate. And so what we always look at is, bounce rate's a really misunderstood, confused column and stat. But basically what it means is if somebody comes to your site and then they leave, they don't go to another page on your site, they have bounced. Everybody bounces at some point. You never stay on a website forever. Everybody bounces. It just depends on where they bounce from and after how long. We generally look at the bounce rate for a particular device to determine how the website looks on that device. So if we have a really high bounce rate on mobile, it's probably not mobile friendly. If we make changes to the mobile version, we want to look to that bounce rate to say, okay, yeah, the bounce rate went down. That was a good move. If not, then we can change it back. We can do anything. On a device-by-device level, this is rare. Normally it's just, iPhone. The only time this kind of comes into play is if you're pulling in a video that only is based in Flash, which is rare these days. But keep in mind, Apple banned Flash. User flow, I'm going to click on this and then quickly click away because it gets really overwhelming really quickly. User flow will basically show you any segment that you want and the flow that it creates through the site. So if I pull in keyword, the first section is not provided. Not provided means that they're logged into Google. Not set means that they didn't actually enter the site through a keyword. And then now we get the list of some keywords. And we're going to look at keywords right after this, so we're not going to dig into the keywords here. But basically it shows you where they come in and then the pages that they go to afterwards and then where they drop from. Acquisition, all traffic, channels. Channels are, I used to call them avenues. Basically it's how people find your site. Okay. Organic search, normally you have 3 channels. You have direct, referral, and search. Most people aren't running AdWord campaigns. Most people don't do much on social or email, but we have 6 in this case. And so we have organic search, paid search, referral traffic, meaning they clicked on a link on somebody else's website and got referred over. They went directly to it via social media or via an email address. Keep in mind that these are just overall visits, and so somebody who finds the website through an organic search might come back to the site through a direct visit. Okay. So those are based on sessions, meaning if somebody comes back to the site 3 times, they are 3 sessions, okay? and they might have 3 different methods of coming to the site. But overall, organic search is half of our traffic. And then as far as, what are the keywords? I was lucky that I had a big base of keywords from the Big Boom blog site. I had 15,000 views, and of those, 99% of them were organic search because I didn't intend to have this product. I just put the post out there, and then people found it. And it was all based on oil pan. It was all based on 7.3 Ford oil pan repair type terms. And so, one thing I want to stress is that it really isn't that important to know the volume or to know the quantity. It's not important to know the keywords based on quantity. Meaning, yeah, that's great that the majority of people come in from oil pan repair kit. We don't actually want people to do that because that's a waste because there's not the word Ford in there or 7.3 or any of that kind of stuff. That's just like generic. We don't sell a generic kit. Again, not provided to people that are logged into Google. But these people aren't really that important. And the reason why is because they're already working well. What's not working well, or in another, to say this another word, and to say this in another way, we want to look at the quality keywords, not the quantity keywords. So the way that we do that is we do average session duration. This shows us the keywords organized by how long people stay on the website based on a keyword.
For figuring out, do you have to put the tracking code on every page
Yeah.
of your website?
Yep.
Okay.
If it's a content management system, generally you just have to put it in one spot because that one spot adds that code to the header.php.
Okay.
And the header.php is on every single page.
Okay.
So unless you have an old school page where there's like each page is a standalone page, that's the case where you need to put on each one.
Okay.
So this shows us what old school marketing guys would say are called long tail terms. Long tail terms, I'll give you an example that's related to this but not. Cars for sale is not a long tail term. 1972 cherry red Chevy Nova Winston-Salem, North Carolina is a long tail term. Cars for sale, person's not really ready to buy. They don't even know what they're looking for. They don't know where, they don't know what, they don't know the year. The Chevy guy, the year, make, model, color, location, that's a buyer. That's somebody that really, really matters. And so even though this first column is how many visits came in from those terms, even though most of those are ones, those are the most important people. Those people had enough knowledge about what they were looking for that they were able to build out Ford diesel oil pan kit or 7.3 Power Stroke oil pan rust. Sometimes we'll get misspellings in this top list, but when you're looking for the low-hanging fruit and the search terms that are already working well, this is how you find them. You just go into the keyword section and you organize by average session duration. That person spent 36 minutes. Maybe they went and made coffee. I don't know. It is active window time, so I've got all these other tabs open up here, but I'm not actively on those tabs. Those aren't clocking up time right now. I'm only clocking up time on the one active window. You go back to it and it picks back up. So you often get the really, really specific search terms from this. And so these are the search terms that you blog about. These are the search terms that you pay Google AdWords for. The ones that are the long tail terms. And you don't want to just grab the top 100 and move them in there because there's probably some stuff in here that really isn't appropriate. Here's a Power Stroke. Let's see if I can find something else. Well, that one does have Ford in it, but
There's one where it just had Damien Diesel's name. It was like Damien Diesel. Okay.
and he has a website that's really bad and doesn't, So best epoxy for oil pan repair. I probably somewhere have a little statement about how awesome that epoxy is. It is a unique epoxy. It's called polysulfide, and it's a oil resistant epoxy built for the oil and gas industry to like fix pipelines and stuff. And so it works fantastically well for hot oil pans. So the keyword section is one of those that everybody just wants to go in there and just like grab the top, like the most popular keywords. Those are already working well. You don't need to kind of continue to optimize for that. You don't want to not focus on those at all, but these are the more important ones for kind of the ring around the niche. So that is one more little thing I'm going to draw for you guys. So I have a lot of people that come in and say, I want to be found for Asheville real estate. And I say, good luck to you. It's not going to happen. Everybody's Beverly Hanks, Keller Williams, all these big giant companies have $2 million marketing budgets a year, and they can just crush you. And so there may be like 10,000 people searching for Asheville real estate, but you can't play in that market. What you need to do is you need to find what I call the ring around the niche. And basically what I mean by that is pick the 4 or 6 or 8 keywords that are going to give you this kind of traffic. Because you're never going to get this. You're never going to get all that traffic. But if you can start getting these based on these types of terms that are much easier to get because there's no competition for them, and like a single blog post could get you 10 of these, go after these. It's easier to write copy. It's easy to identify them. You're not competing against these guys, at least not on a head-to-head basis. And over time, you basically spiral these in, and then you get to the center. So it's the ring around the niche concept. And don't be afraid to pick out something, not only keywords, but an entire product or industry that is so specific that you're thinking there's no way people out there are going to search for this. Get validation. Like I knew that there was 2 million of those engines made. I looked on Wikipedia and said the 7.3 liter Power Stroke engine, there's 2 million of them in production that are out on the road or in junkyards, but whatever. It needs to be a big enough market that you're like, oh yeah, this product could actually reach some folks if we can just figure out the keyword list and how to get onto the top of the search results. So let's jump back, and so that's Google Analytics. Let me make sure I covered all the stuff on there. I didn't. Last section that I want to look at is quickly, just I'll do a quick overview on the overview for behavior. Basically, this is just going to show you the pages that are popular, and you can look at those pages based on the address, what's in the URL, or based on the page title. So you can go in and figure out if your page titles need to be updated to reflect what they actually are. The main thing is the site content. This will show you all the pages on the website and how many people come into each page. Single slash is the home page. Buy now is the next one, and so on and so on. We can also get this entrance column, shows us where people are entering into. So this is extremely important if you have a WordPress site. Yeah.
Have you considered like IP tracking software for your buy now section?
What is it?
It's used a lot in B2B settings. It's called like IP tracking software.
IP tracking software?
Yeah.
Oh, just to track your actual IP address?
Oh yeah, but some like software companies like use it like much more. It's like Lead Blender and sites like that. They charge you a fortune. What they do is they'll put in code, and if you go to like the Buy Now section of your website or the Contact Us section on a B2B website, they'll actually go and look at your cookies and stuff and see if you've ever entered.
I had a client tell me about this yesterday, actually.
Yeah, if you've ever like entered your email address ever anywhere, and they'll just steal it, and then it's just yours.
There was like Visa something was the company that yesterday a client of mine said, you need to check this out. Basically, he went to a site, and then like the next day they called him.
Yeah.
And he didn't plug in anything, but they knew, and it was static IP address for their office, and then they just knew that somebody, so they just asked for the sales guy or whatever. We built a plugin for WordPress that we do a lot of directory sites, and so we built a plugin recently that checks the person's IP address, cross-references that to the zip code that they're in, and then grabs from the dealer database, which is one of these sites. It pulls the 5 closest dealers to that particular person and offers them up without them having to tell us anything about it. And so we've got that kind of stuff in place. I'm not really using it on here just because I haven't dug that deep yet into it. So
Does it work for dynamic IP addresses as well?
it'll try. It'll say they're in Boone, but you're not going to get a specific location. Like where my office is, we've got 4 different businesses, and so we have a series of static IP addresses, but they're dynamic inside the office. So we have like a block of 5, Overview site content. Oh, so the blog. So if you have a site that has a lot of content on it, it's important for you to know the entrance pages. Your homepage is probably not the page that people are coming into. That's why we blog. to go after these very specific search terms. And so, if you have a site with a lot of content, it's important for you to know the pages, and that you do that from behavior, site content, all pages, where it says, here are the pages on your site that are bringing in a lot of traffic. Not just based on overall number of page views, but here are where people are entering into your site. So the entry pages are important.
Is the best way to track like someone going through and actually getting to the buy now page through the
That
where
flow, the visitor flow?
that map? Okay.
Yeah. There's also a tool that I'll show you in a second called Crazy Egg, and it's heat mapping.
Okay.
And you can kind of get some of that data as well. In particular with that, we can tell, we might have like, let's say 3 calls to action on the homepage. We might have, and we do, we've got a buy now button at the top right in the header. We've got that buy now button in the middle, and we've got a buy now button on the last slide of that slider. Crazy Egg will show us how they got to it without us having to create a unique link for each one of those. They can all just link to the same page, but then we can use Crazy Egg heat maps to see which button they clicked on. So we can kind of overlay Google Analytic data with visual Crazy Egg heat map data. Yeah, that's everything on the analytics side. Analytic questions. Analytics is big and scary and lots going on. And this is like a tiny little sliver of that. So Crazy Egg, I'll show you a live Crazy Egg because it's far more interesting than the Crazy Egg for mine. And we'll actually use Nathan's site. Oh, we can combine this in the Slingshot guy. So Nathan has exactly what we were talking about, which is a WordPress site that generates traffic, and then he quickly funnels people to his Shopify site. He is currently rebuilding onto BigCommerce for a lot of reasons, but we did an overhaul onto his website. How does this show up here? So this basically shows where people click. That's what the site looked like, at least somewhat recently. And so that is where people click. The brighter the spot, the more clicks there are. We can see exactly what's going on. People were having a hard time finding the word store or buy now or whatever it was. So I put on a giant bullseye and we reran the snapshot. So basically we added that big old bullseye because people were having a hard time figuring out how to buy. Again, he doesn't sell anything on the site, this just generates traffic, then he funnels it to the sales site. But we put that bullseye on there, redid the snapshot, and then instantly saw like, oh, there's where you go to buy. And so that's something that you can't really get from analytics. You can say, well, this is how many people went from this site to that site. Cool. But how many people did not do that? And how many people clicked on the store button in the footer? How many people are clicking on these sliders? We can tell from right here, people are trying to click on that slingshot and they can't. It's not a click spot, but we could go in and we could add that in there. They're trying to click on this title. That's not a click spot. So we can get some information from this about visually what people are doing. Nobody's clicking on contact. We can shift it to the end, move gallery right next to home. Things like that. We can also get a scroll map, and this shows where people scroll. The white areas are more seen than the other areas. As it goes down the page, it gets colder, more towards blue and then black. So few people make it down to the footer. It's good to know. That focal point is kind of lying right there, which is really like the main description, and then the description on the slides. And then to take it a little bit further, we can do the confetti overlay. And this shows us each click individually, and we can segment this out based on, here's all the referrals, so we can see only the people that came in from Google. We can see only the people that came in from Bing. I don't know why we would want to do that, but Canteen Shop, Knife Works, and so on and down the list. And then we could change this to, let's see this by device type. Let's see this by time to click, how long it takes people to click. So we can say, well, what item is taking people a minute to click on? And so we can see from this that the slider is being heavily clicked on, and so people are spending a lot of time on that slider. You can also tie this over to campaigns. So with Google AdWords, you can say, I want to see people that came in from this particular paid search campaign and look at just them. And then overlay just lets you dig in a little bit further where you can kind of break down more about a specific element. So, questions on Crazy Egg? Crazy Egg for the oil pan site, just because I've got it sitting here. we out of time?
What time is it?
7:30.
Yeah, we probably should do some Q&A.
Okay, let me do one last little thing, and it's basically AdWords. And I'll kind of give you a quick little overview of AdWords here. So, I was really against Google AdWords for a long time. As a web designer, I thought that if I couldn't build a site that got seen, I didn't know what I was doing. So I just tried to make it my job to say, we're going to build a site, it's going to be organic, we're going to get to the top of search engines, we're going to do it legitimately. And then I started having a lot of clients ask me to take over their AdWords campaigns. And my eyes were opened. I realized the power and the benefit and the extreme expense that can be incurred from that, and trying to balance that with proper site construction, proper organic optimization, coupled with AdWords, a very wise budget, a very lean budget that is trim and efficient. And so, if I jump down to so AdWords is basically built out with 3 sections. It's a campaign, and a campaign is comprised of settings for that campaign. And so in this case, we've got a $31 a day budget going after the entire United States. Run it all day long. We've got all these settings that we can set for this particular campaign. We've decided to increase the budget, like I said, by 10% for those states that are where we see a lot of traffic coming in from. Our daily budget, we could change that and bump it down a little bit. And then, so it's the settings, the ads themselves, what you would actually click on. And so those are the ads. And so we make little slight tweaks to the ads, again, change like one thing at a time. So we'll duplicate the ad and then change like one word, or we'll reposition it and run both of those ads. And Google is going to offer up the best ad. That's why this one's got the 74% served rate and the others don't. For whatever reason, that's a little bit more, it's more clicked on than any of the others. So it's the settings, the ads, and then the keywords themselves. And here's our giant list of keywords. And they are very, very specific. And that's important because with Google AdWords, you don't want to pay for traffic that doesn't know what they want. You want traffic that they know.
What are your thoughts on like site-specific type advertising, where it's not like Google AdWords, but like LinkedIn has its own like in-house version of AdWords, and like Facebook does its own thing,
Right.
which isn't really AdWords.
Yeah, they're all. I like Google AdWords the best just because I feel like people go to Google to search for stuff that they want to buy. So when people, we run Facebook ads for a couple law firms because to compete on AdWords for a lawyer, it's like $7 to $70 a click. Like personal injury law, Winston-Salem is $70 a click. You better close that deal. You better get that. You better like make $1 million off that or launch. So for us, I have we make $95 per sale minus AdWords expense. So we know based on every sale, like if it costs us, $10, it's not per click, but if our averages work out so that we are at the end of the day, at the end of the month or the year, have spent X number of dollars on AdWords and have generated X number of visits from that, and then converted X number of those visits, it was worthwhile. And then we can say, yeah, we could increase by another $5 a day and potentially get 1 or 2 more sales, or 10 more sales. So I think they're effective, but in very particular markets. People don't go to Facebook to search for things to buy. They go there to catch up with people, so it's more of an interruptive type of marketing, the way that old school marketing like commercials were. Whereas people are going to Google actively to find stuff to buy and people to hire, so it's far more effective. And the pool of players is bigger, and there's more information out there about it, I think. So with AdWords, you can have, I'm not going to get too much into the match types because we'll do that next time to dig a little bit deeper into this, but you want to come up with very specific things. 1999 Ford Power Stroke oil pan. Use every year model. Use the spellings. Use the, all of these different things. You can also set negative keywords. So for instance, we went in and set every single car manufacturer other than Ford as a negative keyword. We don't want anybody that types in Dodge oil pan repair to find us, and we don't want to pay for that traffic. We don't want to pay $1. We don't want to pay 20 cents for it. So we stack up this list. Over time, what happens is AdWords stacks up this other section that says, for all of those keywords that you put into the system that were not exact, meaning for every keyword that you put in there and gave us some flexibility with what people searched and when we offered that ad up, we've stacked up a list of those keywords that are slightly different from what you put into the system. You should take a look at them. That's this list. So let me say that a different way. We put in all these keywords that we think people are going to type in, that we want to go after, and then if somebody misspells something or changes it to a plural or not, or adds another word in the middle or at the end, we can set that type of keyword, that match type, which right now these are set as broad match. We can set that match type to say, yeah, we want some flexibility in this particular keyword. And as the ads are offered up, Google keeps track of the actual search term, and they put them in this list. So we can go through and say, these are really good keywords. These are very long tail specific keywords, and then we can move those over. They didn't used to have this, so this is a new feature that they will kind of encourage you and help you, because this is how they make all their money. They make $2 billion a month off AdWords alone. And that's all I got. So, questions on all of that?
Would you say the days of like classic Dreamweaver development and stuff like that are pretty much gone?
You know, I still use Dreamweaver to kind of craft little bits of code, but I'll just like yank it out of WordPress, paste it into a Dreamweaver, and then really I use Notepad more than anything else. Notepad++, but
Oh yeah.
it's for like a text editor. But you know, yeah, I haven't used Dreamweaver in a long time. Yeah, and it was all Zach. Actually, we used to work at the same company years ago, and it was like Flash and Dreamweaver. That was it. Yep.
For making like a home page with content, maybe another page with content, and then linking over to like a Shopify or something like that. When you sign up for Shopify, does it have, like, if you already have your domain, does it show your domain on that website you create, or is it
No,
something different?
you'll basically sign up. They'll give you an account, and then you'll have to handle pointing your domain name to their site. When you sign up, they will say, "What's your domain name?" and you can plug it in there. But they're not going to take the steps to get it pointed over.
Okay.
You're going to have to go to.
Well,
whoever
yeah,
you
the
bought
linking in
domain name.
between, yeah, but
As far as linking from like a piece of content on your site over,
yeah.
yeah, it will. And so you can, let's say that you have two different domain names, one for your store and one for your site. You're obviously going to be sending them from one to the other. You can also, let's say you have a domain name. Let's say it's boomerstore.com, and it's a Magento, or it's a Shopify site. And so I got it. I set up a Shopify site, but I also want to have a WordPress blog. Sometimes they will let you set up WordPress either on their server or on your own server, and set it up as a subdomain. So it would be blog.boomerstore.com. That's a way that you can create this association between your store that's hosted with them and your WordPress site that's hosted somewhere else or also with them, and kind of connect the dots and tell Google, hey, these are really part of the same site.
Okay.
And so in that case, it's a little bit more comfortable for somebody to click on a link, and then they go to a page that all it did was add blog to the beginning of it, and it's not some whole new domain name.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What exactly is your job? What do you really offer? What exact services do you do?
For Big Boom Design?
Really, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Do you have all these
Answer
businesses, but
emails.
you also do consulting and blogs? And
I just answer a lot of emails. So we have six. There's 6 employees. I hired 2 more this week, and so I got to get them into training. So it started as basic website construction, and hey, we'll build just a cheap little simple website, and then that quickly evolved into building more complex websites, and then getting more into all of these different pieces that we just talked about. So I kind of rebranded myself and the company as it's an educational web design and internet consulting firm. So we, at the core of what we do, we teach people about the internet and how they can use it to their advantage. And so I teach a lot of classes through the community colleges, through the universities. They're kind of one-off classes like this, so they're 3 hours for small business owners and things like that. So I guess my day-to-day stuff is getting up and answering some emails from home in the morning. I have a house that's 45 seconds away from my office, so it's like right up the street. So I go up there, a couple people are already there before I am. I do a little bit of project management to make sure projects are moving smoothly, jump back into emails, do some sales calls based on people that have called me and that I'm calling back, put together some proposals, deal with some invoices, receive some payments, go in and tweak AdWord campaigns for some clients that we have on a reoccurring revenue, kind of a service level agreement, deal with hosting issues. Oh my God, that site got hacked. We got to register these domain names. I kind of fall into the catch-all. Anything that I can't give or delegate or automate to somebody else, I just have to deal with.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is customer service and phone calls, and we have a couple hundred clients, and so it's, you know, people constantly asking
Right.
for little tweaks here and there, and then I travel a bunch. I'm in Boone once a week normally, and then because I started the business here right when I graduated, and then I kind of quickly moved to Asheville, so I still have a ton of clients here, and so I'm back here once a week, and down in Charlotte a bunch, and Winston, and Greensboro, and Atlanta, so.
And what's the most profitable sector, if you're open to sharing?
So the oil pan thing, I'll kind of start with that and kind of work through them. So this is, and I'll tell you guys about some of these other ideas if you want, as far as where they are and what's making money and what's not. The oil pan thing, we've pulled in about $16,000 this year so far, but obviously Damien took, you know, $200 from every sale. So I make probably $1,000 to $1,400 a month, which pays my mortgage off of oil pans that we don't make. And Chris makes the same. So we do probably $12,000 to $15,000, at least we did last year, off of that, and that was the first year that we did it. We're hoping to roll out a couple other kits for some of these other engines, come up with a couple other products using the same polysulfide stuff. So this could turn into a $100,000 business for the two of us together, and that's 50 grand by itself. So I made a goal to myself a couple years ago that for the next 4 years, I was going to come up with a business venture for each year that made $10,000. And so 2 years ago, it was the oil pan thing. And in the first year, we did $12,000 each. So I got that one. The next year, which was last year, it was a shipping container home design packet. So on bigboomblog.com, I have a graphic, and I got into shipping container designs, basically designing homes and coffee shops or whatever out of containers on the computer and rendering them. And I generated a ton of traffic through that on the blog. And so I bundled up all of these images into a zip file. I put it on Gumroad, put a picture on my blog, and I just funnel people to it, and I sell it for $29. And I sell like 2 or 3 a week. And that is 100% profit. Whereas the oil pan thing, it's kind of 100% profit, but we got this other guy that's taking some money. I have a project coming up for this next year that is called Gift Coal. The house that I bought is 100 years old in Asheville, and I have 10,000 pounds of coal in the coal room. Literal coal. And so I thought so. I was like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. So Gift Coal is going to be how naughty are your kids? Naughty, naughtier, or naughtiest? And it's a half a pound, a 2 pound, or a 5 pound bag of coal with a custom message in a little bag sent to your door.
Have you heard of sendyourenemiesglitter.com? There's just exploded.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So that's a good example of a site that I have no involvement with. This guy, sendyourenemiesglitter.com.
It sold today.
What was the total? Do you know?
$85,000.
85? Okay.
It went.
So this guy came up with this idea. He's probably just a web dude, and was sitting in an airport and like came up with it or something. SendYourEnemiesGlitter.com, and for $9.99 he will ship an envelope full of glitter to whoever you want. And he got $20,000 in sales in 4 days. And then he put out a post and said, "Stop buying this stupid product. This is a joke. I don't want to deal with all this glitter. Company's closed. I'm putting it up for auction." And he started a live auction for the website, and it just sold for $80,000. A few years ago, I found a site that somebody sent it to me, and it was send your enemies animal poop, and they will send any type of poop that you might want them to anybody. And so,
people call it the herpes of the craft world.
You have to look at the frequently asked questions.
it's a pretty funny site. It is. And the guy, he hit on something interesting.
This one
So,
called
I
Ship a
guess the
Dick,
big takeaway from this
and
is
they
like,
send like a 10-inch
you know,
cardboard
some
penis
people
to
spend
somebody.
months or years or decades trying to figure out like what they're going to go to the market with, or like this idea or this product or whatever, and it doesn't even need to be your product. You need to do it in a legitimate way, and I didn't even talk about like accounting and making sure that you're paying your taxes, because there are, you're making money, period. Somebody else wants a cut, and generally it's the government. But keep track of that before it's too late, and you're like, oh, we just made $40,000 this year. Oh, I bet we're gonna have to pay some taxes. You know, like keep track of that. Like the gift call thing, I don't know if that's gonna happen. I don't know if it's gonna work or not. I have no idea. At this point, I've got this staff that in the lull between projects and be like, I need a design for this gift call site, or I need you to do this or that, or find some stock photos. So I've got a staff that I can kind of delegate some of these things to, with the hopes that I'll recoup that money at some point. And I kind of have my own little threshold of like, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 on a project because it might not make any money, and then I just dump that money into an idea, you know. And I'm notorious, as I assume a lot of you guys are, for just constantly coming up with these ideas. I'm like, yeah, that might be a really good idea. Let me buy that domain name. And then you got all these domain names that you don't even have, you know, you don't have time to build sites for and work on. So I spread myself way too thin and have tried to pull a lot of these things back in. I've got the oil pan thing that's working pretty well. The shipping container thing, I at least have broken even, and that's going forward. The gift call thing, I'm not that far with. I've got a few future projects that are I don't want to let out yet because I don't even have the domain names or anything yet. But those could be kind of cool. I am getting into the affiliate side of stuff, especially with Amazon affiliates, where you can set up a site and generate a little bit of content, and don't be scared to pick something